You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
It's the biggest of rugby years, Rugby World Cup 2023, 19 weeks away. So how are we tracking? How's it all going for the first time in 2023 on this show anyway? Great pleasure to welcome in All Blacks coach Ian Foster. Ian, thanks for taking the time to chat to us. What have the first few months of 2023 involved for you?
Yeah, lots of work behind the scenes and lots of things happening, but it's been great to, I guess, apart from going up north and watching a bit of Six Nations, it's been great to settle in and watch the Super Rugby and seeing the progress of teams and players and a lot of work for something pretty big happening later in the year.
Indeed. So, on the whole, what have you made of the performances of your top players in Super Rugby so far this season?
Yeah, I think okay. I think it's World Cup years. Often you find some players a little bit slower to start, but I think the performances have been generally pretty good. Excuse me, of a lot of individuals. So pleased with some and moderately pleased with others, and want a little bit more out of others. That's probably the easiest way to summarise it. But I think we're now into the meaty end of the season. There's a lot of positioning for sort of top positions, and clearly now is where the fun really starts for the competition, I think. So we're looking forward to this next month.
When you talk about players who perhaps haven't quite reached the levels that you might have hoped they would, are you able to get on the phone to those guys and let them know, or do you leave that in the hands of their Super Rugby coaches? Well,
I mean, day to day, it's always in the hands of the Super Rugby coaches. But we met our players. I think you may remember we had a camp in the end of January. First time I've had one before they joined the Super Rugby teams. We sat down with the players and got some key indicators from them of things that they really wanted to try to nail in Super Rugby, and we had an agreement about coming back and giving them feedback on two or three things. So, we're busy doing that. So between, all the coaching group with Joe and Jason, Stormy and Fiki, they, regularly either, I guess, in a franchise or or they'll be touching base with either coach or player and just updating on some of those key areas. So it's not giving them feedback on all facets of their game, but it is on focusing on areas that we know the players really keen to work on, and we're really interested in that space too. So a lot of that's going on behind the scenes.
You're able to take 33 players to the World Cup compared to 31 in previous tournaments. In which positions are you most likely to add those extra two players? Yeah, well,
I mean, it's a smart move, I think, to go. I think I forget what 2015 was, but I know 2019 was one more, and now we've got one more again. So, I mean, if you look at it in its simplicity, you could sort of got two lots of 15, so two teams, and then you get almost the three extras as sort of potentially a third hooker, a third 9, a third 10, some of your specialist positions. That's kind of some of the simplicity of the logic, but we've got a lot of versatility in our group, particularly in our backs, and quite a bit of versatility when you look at some of our locks and into loose forward type play. So the makeup of the group will be. We're having some good debates about that already, obviously, and we've got the Rugby Championship where we'll probably be picking 36 to I guess keep the door open for people as well.
Are there any positions in particular, Ian, where you still haven't really locked in your final squad? I mean, presumably you've written down 33 names, but are there any positions in particular where there's greater debate than others?
Yeah, definitely. There's certainly, it's certainly not a closed door at the moment to anybody. We often get asked this, and we certainly have got our a lion's share of our group, pretty clear. But there are some positions that there is, we want to be open-minded right to the end. And also we've got the ability through the Rugby Championship, and we've also got a New Zealand A team going up and playing 2 games against Japan to also trial a couple of things. So there's a bit ahead of us, and I think But we are having some good debates about certain positions, and that's the way it should be.
Everybody loves a World Cup bolter. Do you think anyone will go to the World Cup who hasn't played for the All Blacks yet?
Well, I don't know. It wouldn't be a bolter if I told you, Jason, would it? So it's one of those questions I'm not allowed to answer the way you framed it. So it's, I don't. Who knows? And look, let's be. If you look at the bigger picture, we've scratched. I guess when you look at Sevu Reese's injury, you look at George Bowers' injury. Part of this part of the year is actually looking at all the contingency plans of making sure we've got our depth options really clear. And for one, it's about making sure we know who is the next in line for us, and then secondly, it's also making sure that we're helping or doing whatever we can to get them ready so that if they are selected, they get a chance to come in. So sometimes, with the size squads we've had the last couple of years with travel, COVID, etc., I think it's probably, the odds of getting someone who hasn't played for us probably aren't that great, but you never know. And also there's the guys who come in during the tournament that also have got big opportunities. So let's just keep excited about that for a bit longer.
All right, fair enough. What are the things that the All Blacks are going to have to do particularly well and better than last year to win the World Cup?
Look, we've got to make sure that we really continue the growth on the key areas that other teams like to go to accumulate points. And so what we've learned the last 3 or 4 years is that what we know is that if you enable people to come at you through their set piece, through driving plays, and if international teams find weakness in that space, then it's a long night in the office. So we've got to keep growing that. We have to look at how we, I guess, stay focused and calm when we're actually playing well. And I know that sounds a bit strange, but last year one of our biggest weaknesses was when we were winning by about 10 or 15 points. So we've done a lot of good stuff, and then when teams started to come back at us, we just had little periods of games that we lost our way in. So again, there's some little things there we've got to keep tidying up and keep our concentration and focus for a full 80 minutes, and really demanding that 100% concentration right through a game. So there's a couple of little points, and I guess thirdly for World Cups are very unique. We're going to a World Cup in a country with a foreign language, and where the host team is probably the favourite. And we're not going to be going into a warm, fuzzy environment where kind of everyone loves us and wants to be around the All Blacks. We're going to a country that actually will want to see us trip up and not play well. So I think how we embrace that and get excited about that challenge is going to be big for us.
Have you decided on your captain for the year?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Can you tell us who it is?
No. We've got a plan with our leadership group. We don't get a lot of contact with our players formally during Super Rugby, and so we're just working through a timeline with. We've had a couple of short sessions with our leaders, and we're not far away from revealing that side of it. Part of it is just to being able to allow people just to get back and play. We've had a number of players that have been disrupted with injury over the last couple of years, and really have just been keen for people to settle in and just get some runs under their board, get their confidence up, and then we'll make that announcement shortly.
All right. Ian, you're the first All Blacks coach in history who knows who his successor is going to be. How do you expect the dynamic between you and Scott Robertson to work across the year?
Well, for me, probably not. It shouldn't be any different. I don't expect any change. Reality is he's the coach for next year, and I'm the coach for this year. So that's the dynamic.
You will still, though, presumably have to have contact with him in his capacity as Crusaders coach over the next couple of months or so.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just business as normal as... Well, it's not business as normal, but it has to be business as normal. You can't have two voices in the market. You can't have people trying to make decisions based on two different opinions. So it's pretty simple to me.
Ian, if this process had been done after the World Cup, how likely would it have been that you would have thrown your hat back in the ring?
Oh, not much point talking about that, Jason. It's look, what's done is done, and for me right now, all I want to focus on the World Cup.
There's been some talk this week as well about overseas-based players being eligible for the All Blacks. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I do. Look, I think from an All Blacks perspective, it's, if I just looked at it purely selfishly from an All Blacks, it's, you know, I guess it makes some academic sense, but I think from a New Zealand rugby as a whole, I think it'd be a disaster. I think you know, I think we've got a Super Rugby competition that has fed our national team for many, many years. I don't think the Super Rugby competition's perfect at the moment. It needs a bit of work, but it is the development path. It's where we actually develop our players. We're able to work with the franchises in that space, and I think we need to make sure we're selling that product to the public, and we're growing our young players with our older players around them. So I think the minute we open up the door, I think we know the worldwide demand for our players is huge, and I think we'll lose a lot of our top players, and I think that'll dilute our domestic competition too much. So, look, there's pros and cons either way, but I think we have to look at the game as a whole, as a bigger picture, and I think they need to stay and play here.
All right, and just to finish, what are we about? I think it's 19 weeks today that the first Rugby World Cup game comes around. Do you have a sense of excitement, of anticipation about what lies ahead?
Oh, definitely. Like, it's, you know, the coaching group, we're all together in Wellington on Friday, just getting our plans in place and continuing that work. We're all going up to Hamilton for the game tonight. That'll be a good one, but it's all about building for that game. And I'd have to say that sitting in that Stade de France a month ago, watching France play, and the excitement of that country and the crowd and even the French team themselves, it's just very clear that this is going to be an amazing tournament. So can't wait.
Yeah, we all can't wait. Just before you go, non-rugby related topic. We know you're going to a World Cup. Get the feeling your daughter, Michaela, might be going to one as well. Brilliant few months for her for the Wellington Phoenix, a Football Ferns debut. How proud a moment was that for you as a dad to sit in the stand in Hamilton and watch her debut?
Oh, that was pretty special. And, you know, for us as a family, and, you know, for... You know, the amount of times that, you know, you sort of know the commitment that goes in from a parent's side, particularly my wife, Lee, with all her travelling around. But, no, she's worked hard. She's excited. But she's in a good place now because she knows that squad hasn't been picked. She's got a big training camp for 6 weeks coming up, and she's going to have to work hard to get selected. So it's we're at that stage. We can't get too ahead of ourselves.
All right. You reckon the Chiefs will beat the Crusaders tonight?
Oh, very tight game. I can't wait. I think there's one team that has to win and one team that would like to win, and so it just depends. You know, I think the Crusaders probably in a situation they need this one, and I think the Chiefs done so well. They've got a bit of a buffer at the top, so it's just how they harness that motivation and get their hunger levels up. And I think if the Chiefs win, I think it's going to be a mighty achievement.
Ian, always appreciate the chance to chat to you. Look forward to doing it again, hopefully before the World Cup rolls around.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ian. Ian Foster there, All Blacks coach.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.
Hello, I'm Liam Dan, Business Editor at Large for the New Zealand Herald, and I'm back with another season of my podcast, Money Talks. In this series, we're not going to tell you how to get rich. We're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. Instead, I'll be talking to some interesting New Zealanders about how money has shaped their lives and what they've learned about it through the years. Join us every Saturday for a new chat with an exciting range of guests from the world of business, politics and entertainment. You can find Money Talks with me, Liam Dan, wherever you get your podcasts.